What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for the first match preview of the season. Spurs and Ange Postecoglou travel to Brentford Sunday, 2 p.m. kickoff in the first game of the ANGE era, the first game of the Premier League, and the first game in the post-Harry Kane era as well. As much as it is sad to lose Harry Kane, I think we can all accept and we can all get behind an exciting new era under Ange Postecoglou. So you up for it, Sim?
I am, and I'm really excited to see Ange ball in a competitive game against a really tough Brentford team who are definitely a first home game of the season for them. The fans are going to be behind them. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to be on top of us, and it's going to be on Ange Postecoglou and the Tottenham team to make sure that they keep playing and stick to their principles like they've been doing over pre-season. But this is going to be a completely different kettle of fish. So I'm excited to see how they adapt to like playing against high level opposition, and as well I'm excited to see how the team react to having no Harry Kane.
Yeah, what do you think it's going to be like? I mean, we spoke about this a bit last night, but do you actually think like the players are going to take that authority upon themselves to really step up and try and fill that void without Harry Kane? Or do you reckon there'll be a few slumped shoulders without their talisman that has been the past couple of years?
Well, Ange is saying in his press conference that they've been planning for this for a while. So if on that basis, I'm going to assume that the players, this is not a total shock to them that Harry Kane is leaving, and I think that they're going to want to prove a point. A lot of the, everyone's saying at the moment surrounding our season that we're so reliant on Harry Kane, and that without him we're going to be a mid-table team and we're going to drop off rapidly. And look how we did last season if we took away Kane's goals and all that kind of rubbish. And I think they're going to want to prove a point on Sunday, and I think Ange himself is going to want to prove a point. He's going to be saying in the dressing room, look, everyone thinks we can't do this, Harry Kane. Go out there and show them why they're wrong. And I think that's the kind of reaction we're going to get on Sunday. Whether that's enough for a win, it's a different case, because I think Brentford are a very, very tough team.
Yeah, no two ways about it. And I don't think we've won there since they've come into the Premier League. I think it's been 2 draws, right?
0-0 and 2-2.
Yeah, so it's been very frustrating, our trips to Brentford. But let's get into the form of the two teams. I know not much to go on, and the majority of this is pre-season. But Brentford haven't had the best of times at pre-season. Obviously, without their talisman, Ivan Toney, coming into this game. They'll be without him until January. Only scored 6 goals in their last 5 games. I think 4 of those were pre-season, 9 conceded. Spurs, on the other hand, I mean, conceding so many and scoring so many as well. Do you judge, can you read into anything about pre-season scorelines?
I think it's more, pre-season is more about performances than it is scorelines. I don't think you can read too much into that. It's more about how they're adapting to what the coaches are wanting from them. I don't think results for coaches are very important in pre-season. It's just about how ready they are for the new season and how good they're looking on the pitch. So I don't think you can read too much. You've got to remember as well, Brentford had a lot of tougher pre-season than us. We were playing the likes of the Lion City Sailors, while they were playing in the Premier League series out in America. So they were, and I watched some of those games, and they were not typical friendly games. They were fast-paced, almost Premier League-esque kind of games. So despite them not winning any of those games, that'll give them a lot better preparation going into the season than our pre-season, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if you look at the head-to-head between the clubs, I mean, I touched on it before, we haven't won at Brentford since they have come into the Premier League. We lost at the last stage of last season at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as well, so we couldn't beat them at all last season. The last time we did beat them was in a 2-0 win at home in their first year in the Premier League. What kind of things do you expect from Brentford in this game, and how are we supposed to combat that?
It's going to be very difficult, I think, to be honest. Brentford away is difficult for every team in the Premier League, essentially. I think Thomas Frank has really instilled that belief and this aggression and intensity in this team. And I actually think I look at Brentford, and in terms of a team who's capable of combating what hopefully Ange is trying to do with Tottenham, with the possession-based football, trying to pen Brentford in. I don't think Brentford will mind being dominated in possession. I don't think they'll mind not seeing a lot of the ball, because they know they're very, very strong at set pieces. They're very strong on the counter-attack with Mbeumo on the right-hand side. They like to attack the wings as well. They like to put the ball down the line, which is exactly where we don't want it when we're kind of defending. And they're very robust defensively. They're very good when they're in a unit, and they're not going to mind when Tottenham are passing the ball around. They're going to back themselves to be very organised, hard to break through, and then when they do get the ball, they're very quick in the transition. They're very fast to get the ball forward. They're very direct, and when they do earn set pieces, they know that's one of our weak points at the moment, and that's one of their strong points. So it's going to be very difficult to battle against. How we're going how we're going to combat that is we're going to have to be super efficient when we do have the ball. We're going to have to make sure that when we do lose it, we're not leaving those wide areas as exposed as they can be, and hopefully Udogie and Emerson can provide the cover necessary to prevent the Brentford wide players from really causing havoc. And I really just hope we've really done our work on the training pitch from set pieces, because in pre-season our set pieces looked absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, with the new goalkeeper that Brentford have in Flecken, I mean, I was watching a bit of Brentford, and he didn't fill me with nowhere near as much confidence as David Raya in their goal, and I think that could be a bit of a weak point on his debut. Do you expect us maybe with James Maddison potentially to start taking a couple of shots from far and start testing him?
And they signed him because the data was very strong in terms of his playing out from the back, and he's got really good ball distribution. He seemed to be one of the better keepers out in the Bundesliga. I haven't really noticed too many problems with him out in pre-season, but I guess I'm really kept an eye on him specifically. But yeah, I think on debut there might be a few nerves. So I think a few pot shots, just a few early testers to see if he can take it is probably in the offing. But I wouldn't point to him as like a massive source of weakness, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, if we look up, bring on their team, I mean, there's no real weaknesses on their team because the way Thomas Frank sets them up and because how hard-working they are and how industrious they are. But we got Flecken in goal, Aaron Hickey, Pinnock, me, and Henry at the back with Jensen, Onyeka, Damsgaard. Onyeka is a doubt with Mbeumo, who's confirmed to start. On the left, you've got Sade, and up front, you've got Wissa. And look, in terms of their defence, I mean, what's the best way to get at that defence?
It's difficult. I would say probably centrally, even though, look, Ange's kind of way of playing, he likes to isolate the fullbacks and then get them in one-on-one situations. I look at Henry and Hickey, and I think especially Henry, they're quite decent one-on-one defenders. How much Roy Kulusevski gets out of Rico Henry on that left-hand side is going to be difficult. I would say centrally, get Maddison floating in the pockets and get Richarlison to be in the box and trying to attack the penalty area. But the way their midfield is set up, it's going to be very difficult to break them down in the central areas because they all like to get very congested and get in around the penalty box. Set pieces is going to be very difficult to exploit them. So I'm just looking for areas where maybe Aaron Hickey would be the area where Son could get some draw on the left-hand side. Maybe if we can isolate him, and if they go over and double up on Son, maybe that could open up space for James Maddison to really float in between the likes of Jensen and Onyeka and get some space. Maybe that's where we can get some joy. Damsgaard on the other side, he's not the most defensive midfielder. He's more of like a creator. So maybe our midfield on that side, whether it be Sarr or Skip, I'm not sure who it's going to be at the moment. Maybe he's one who might be able to find some space, but it's going to be very difficult. I can see it being a real difficult time for Tottenham on Sunday.
Yeah, do you see a few teething problems for Spurs coming into the new season? And if so, obviously, the obvious one is the backline with Van de Ven, with Postecoglou saying he's not completely there just yet, but he is available for selection. Apart from the defence, where can you see some sort of like teething problems? And if we do match them with the kind of ability that they show on the pitch in terms of energy and application, can we get the better of them this weekend?
Look, quality-wise, we have the better team, of course. We have the better players. But I don't think it's even teething problems. I just think Brentford are very... Look, Man City went to Brentford last season and Brentford did the double over them. Brentford at home are a very, very difficult game for anyone, especially Ange Postecoglou in his first game. And we haven't had the best preparation for this season. So I don't expect us to go there. And look, I'm not saying we're not going to win. I think we have a good chance of winning because we have the better team. But I think even when you're at your best, it's a very difficult game. So going in there with a very difficult pre-season under your belt, with a completely new style of play, and a new manager, with new signings to settle in, with Van de Ven potentially not even playing, that's going to exacerbate the set-piece issue as well, not having his height in there if he's not playing. And especially if we're going to play a high line, if Van de Ven's not there, I can just see Mbeumo running Raya down that side, especially if Udogie's caught up the field. So I think I do expect problems for Tottenham. I expect Brentford to come flying out the traps, in all honesty, and I expect it to be a very, very difficult start to a game against a side who are going to be settled in the way they play, and they know exactly what they're doing, whereas we might have to feel our way into the game. And I can see it going very similarly to how, the game went against Barca. I think early doors we might be a bit shell-shocked and we might take a bit adjusting to, but once we get into our rhythm, I can see us kind of building into the game. And if we do get settled in possession, we do start to dominate, I do expect us to cause Brentford a bit of problems. Even though they're a very good defensive side, I do expect us to kind of start opening up some gaps with how we like to manipulate the ball. But I don't expect us to create a flurry of chances. I expect us to create some chances, but whether we take them or not is going to basically be whether we win this game or not.
And obviously it's going to be a massive day for Richarlison. The first time he's going to be leading the line without the shadow of Harry Kane. And, he hasn't had the best of time at Spurs. That's no secret. But how can we really utilise Richarlison? Obviously, he is suited in terms of what he brings to a football game. He is suited to this system that Ange Postecoglou likes to play. But even in pre-season, he hasn't really filled me with much confidence. So what does he need to be doing different, and how can we really utilise him to get the best out of him?
This particular game is going to be difficult for him because I think two very physical centre-backs in me and Pinnock are going to be challenging him. And he's going to have to look for those runs in behind where I don't envisage a load of space for him. I think he's going to be at his best when we're playing better teams in a way, because I feel like he's going to be able to utilise that running in behind, and I think that pressing that he does will really put pressure on the centre-backs of better teams who like to play out the back. I think for Brentford, it's going to be a bit more difficult. They're more willing to go long and bypass the press. When it comes to crosses in the box, you've got me and Pinnock are really strong in the air and very strong penalty box defenders. So that, I think, one of Richarlison's, for me, biggest strength is his ability to attack crosses and get headers and finishes from crossing situations. And I think that's, for centre-backs like Ben Mee, that's their bread and butter. So I do, again, envisage him personally to have a good game. What you need in this kind of game is for a striker to have quite good hold-up play, quite good interchanges, and be able to have quick kind of turns of pace on the edge of the box and quick snapshots. I actually think Kane would have been really effective in this game. Obviously, he's not going to be available. I do envisage Richarlison to have a difficult time. What does he need to be doing? He needs to improve his overall game, making sure that when a ball is fitted to him, he's taking it into his stride and getting a good first touch. When he's when there's a quick pass around the corner, it needs to be accurate, it needs to be on point. And those are things we haven't seen so far from Richarlison. But he is quite a strong attacker in his own right, and maybe I do envisage, if we do whip in 10 crosses, I do think like Ben Mee and Pinnock will probably get 10 of them. But if Richarlison can get 2 of them out of the 10 and make something of them, maybe he can get some joy.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what you were saying before with Van de Ven potentially not playing, and that could weaken us. If Van de Ven doesn't play, who do you think is going to get that left centre-back role? And do you think there's a big case for Sanchez after that performance against Barcelona?
I think there's a big case for Sanchez because if I'm looking for a defender rather than Van de Ven to deal with Mbeumo, I would much rather it be Sanchez than Davis or Dyer, because I think Mbeumo on the counter-attack he's one of the best players I've seen in the Premier League in transition. I think Mbeumo. I think he's absolutely fantastic. He's got amazing pace, great dribbling ability in one-on-one situations, really good finishing. He's really starting to up his finishing ability as well. So out of all the defenders apart from Van de Ven, I think Sanchez might be best suited to that. But it's whether on the occasions where Brentford are aggressive against us when we're trying to play out the back, I think Sanchez is going to have a lot of trouble trying to beat their press. And I see them getting a lot of joy out of Sanchez when we're trying to build up from goal kicks and we pass the ball to Sanchez. They can be so aggressive when they pick their moments to press Brentford. They've got a very good pressing structure in those moments where they like to pen you into corners. And I think Sanchez on those occasions is going to be a bit of a liability. So it's a bit of a balancing act, who the best person to pick. And in those cases, actually, I think Ben Davis would be a better pick for those situations, because I actually envisage him having more joy beating Brentford's press than I do Sanchez. So it's whether we see, are we going to have more? What's going to happen more? Are we going to be being pressed more from Brentford, and in that case we're going to be needing Davis more, or are the situations where Brentford are in transition and getting Mbeumo in down the right-hand side, is that going to happen more often? In that case, we're going to need Sanchez. So I'm going to back him playing Davis, in my opinion. I think he's going to want to dominate the ball, and I think he's going to back our own ability. And I think that's what he's going to go with.
The thing is, I just don't trust Ben Davis or Eric Dyer to play one of the back two in a back four in a high line. I just don't think they're good enough to do that. And I don't think Sanchez is good enough either, to be honest. But I think he has more attributes where, it can combat that. I get what you're saying on the ball. He's nowhere near good enough. But I think this game, I just genuinely believe we just need to try our best to be defensively solid as we can. And I think when you're looking at those three defenders, I think Sanchez will give us the most attributes, how to combat the high line and how to play the high line the best way possible. But having said that, do you not think there is a chance that maybe Van de Ven will start?
He said he's available. He said he has had a pre-season with Wolfsburg, and maybe from a match fitness point of view, he's not quite there yet, but he said he definitely is available for selection. He's obviously had a week with Tottenham in the training. So I guess there's an outside possibility. I just get the feeling that with him having been here a week, with Sanchez, Dyer, and Davis. Look, as much as we don't like them as defenders, like as fans, Ange is new to the club. These are long-standing players of the club, Davis, Dyer, and Sanchez. And I wonder whether he'll feel like if he just brings Van de Ven in straight away after a week without much game time or time on the training pitch, and with Sanchez, Dyer and Davis playing in pre-season and also having been here for a long time as respectful members of the squad, is he going to feel like it's disrespectful to them in a way to just chuck Van de Ven in the deep end when you've got defenders there? Would he feel like that's just sending a message to the defenders? I don't think any of you are good enough, and I think you're all rubbish, basically. And it would be interesting to see how I do think obviously Van de Ven's going to be our number one centre back eventually, and it might even be in the second week. But I feel like in the first week, I don't know if I see him chucking him in straight away.
Well, I guess it all depends on if he thinks he's completely ready. He's got to put out his team who he thinks can go and win that game and who gives us the best chance of winning that game. Mm-hmm. And if Van de Ven is I know he said in the press conference he's not completely ready, but if he is, a big percentage of the way ready, I think that gives us the best chance to go and win that game and the best way to play that high line and especially on the ball as well to go start our attacks and help us at the back.
I would chuck him in.
Yeah, me too.
I would do it, but Ange has got a delicate balancing act to play with.
I get that.
Just from managing the squad, and it's whether he thinks chucking him in is the best option for that point of view.
Yeah, it's a fair point. But in terms of the star men that we've picked out, we've talked about Ivan Toney being out until January. And at the back end of the season, we saw him come out of the team for a little bit. So the star men we've picked is Bryan Mbeumo and Johan Wissa, who I think both of them had an absolutely astonishing end to the season last year. And Mbeumo, as you mentioned before, great player on the transition, seems to be getting better and better as the seasons progress. And Wissa, he's a one that really impressed me. I mean, both of them tore us to shreds at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the back end of last season. And if it's going to be Dyer at the back, I really fear for Dyer when he's coming up against those two.
And that was at the back end of last season when we had Mason, so we were trying to play a bit more front foot football, and actually in that game specifically, we went to four at the back, if you remember, with Dan Juba coming in. And we actually played quite well for the opening half an hour, but once Brentford settled into the game and started catching us out on the counter, they absolutely ripped us to shreds on the counter, and especially Mbeumo, almost single-handedly, was so clinical.
Was it Davis at left back that day? Because didn't Bryan Mbeumo just literally tear Davis one?
I think so. I think you might be right. I think it was Ben Davis at left back that game. So that's going to, I think I think he's going to do a big move in the next year or so if he doesn't move this summer. It doesn't look like he is going to move, and I think he's going to move for big money. I think Mbeumo is brilliant. I think he's getting better and better the more he plays in the Premier League. He's getting more clinical with his left foot. I think his dribbling has never been in question. He's such a fast dribbler. He's always a handful to deal with. And he's one of those players where even when he's not scoring or even assisting, he's just a pain to deal with. He's getting on the ball. He's driving at you. He's never giving you a moment's rest. He can go in behind and he can come short to the ball and pick up the ball from deep and run at you as well. And he's starting to add that clinical edge with his left foot as well. bit too one-footed, I would say, but I think he's still a fairly young player, like 23. I think he's really developing into a really good winger on the right-hand side, and I think he's going to be an absolute handful. When it comes to Wissa, I like him as well. I think he had a good end to the season. I don't see him as good as Ivan Toney.
Yeah.
I think he's good at running in behind, and he's quite a strong player and a good finisher. I don't think his hold-up play or anything like that is anything as strong as Toney. I think you could shackle him if you allowed him to have the ball into feet, but if you allow him to get a run on you, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, but you got to say it was impressive at the back end of last season how when Ivan Toney was out, they just picked up the mantle, didn't they? And they went on a really good run of form and scoring a lot of goals as well. But I tell you what, right now, for this weekend, I've never wanted to beat Brentford as much as I do this weekend. They really annoyed me with this David Raya deal, how they rejected 30 million or even above 30 million from us. And then Arsenal come in later in the window and they bend over backwards to help them with FFP, get a cheaper deal and all this kind of stuff. I mean, what is that all about?
Yeah, maybe they realised they weren't going to get the offer and their demands reduced as the window went on. So I think that's probably the case. If Tottenham played the waiting game, maybe it would be a situation where we could have got a lower fee and they would have accepted it, but we didn't want to do that. We moved on very quickly to Vicario, and that was actually praised by a lot of Tottenham fans at the time, to just move on quickly if you're not going to get the price. But it seems as though if we would have played the waiting game, we might have well got the price we wanted, because it was reported that he did agree personal terms with us. Oh, sorry. So it might have been the case where we could have got this deal done if we just waited. But it seems as though he's off to Arsenal. It's a gutting for us, because I think we've missed out on a very good goalkeeper, and it just seems as though Brentford have gone out of their way to help Arsenal. Literally
bending over backwards to get another contract in there, a loan with an option to buy or an obligation if certain clauses are met, and for a cheaper fee as well. What was it, like 25 million or something?
27 plus 3 million loan fee.
It's ridiculous. So I guess it ends up being 30 million, which is the offer that we offered. But we offered them without a loan, without anything, just take the money and we'll take your keeper. And then a few weeks later or a month later, literally just bending over backwards to help our North London rivals. And he doesn't even go there as a starting choice straight away. He's going there as a backup to start off with.
I think he would have come to Tottenham if we could have agreed a deal. But for some reason, Brentford wouldn't deal with us. Maybe Brentford see us more as competition than Arsenal.
Yeah, maybe. Because when you look at last season, I mean, we finished close to them in the league table, didn't we?
One place above them.
Yeah, they finished ninth. So do you think the way Brentford are coming into this, looking at Spurs, are we going to shock them this weekend, or will they be fully clued up on the way we're going to play?
I think they'll have an inkling. I don't think you can fully have all bases covered when you're facing a new team and the new manager. There's got to be some element of the unknown, because all they have to go on is a few pre-season games, and even then we only played 45 minutes with different teams, and and also no Harry Kane. We haven't seen Richarlison team up with Maddison and Son and Kulusevski, and how that dynamic works. So I think there is going to be an element of unknown. I'm sure they'll do as much research as possible into how we've been setting up under Postecoglou, but I think there will be a few elements of surprises in terms of how we do shape up, and maybe that will catch them out on a few things. But in a way, it's less important, because I feel like Brentford being settled and knowing what they're doing tactically and on the pitch is going to be more important than just a bit of a surprise package from Tottenham.
All right, well, that is your match preview for the opening game of the season. I'm going to be at the game this weekend on Sunday. Sim will be with Barry here in the studio with you for the watch long, and then obviously the post-match fan show, where it's your chance to have your say. Sim, what's your prediction going into this one?
I think because of the whole situation regarding the Kane situation and Ange's first game, I think there might be an opportunity to scrape a win here if we can defend properly. But if I'm looking at this game tactically and where both teams are at, I don't think we win. I don't think we lose, because I do think we might get some joy going forward. But I also think Brentford are perfect in a way to attack us from set pieces and transition. So I see them, especially if Van der Ven's not ready, I do see them going for getting a couple of goals. So I'm going to go with 2-2.
2-2, that's exactly what I've said. I've also said 2-2. I don't think that we're going to be strong enough at the back, especially if one of Dyer, Sanchez or Ben Davis play. And I think we can get goals at the other end with the way that we're going to play our football. I think we'll overload them in certain areas and find openings in the game. But I'm just not sure if we'll be good enough defensively going the other way to keep them out. But I think it'll be a really good game of football, to be fair. And I'm very excited to be there and see the first sightings of ANGE ball in a competitive game. And hopefully the fans will be up for it after the Harry Kane news and get really, because I think the fans really need to get behind the team now and really need to support ANGE and the lads, because it's going to be difficult the first few weeks, especially without Harry Kane. And it's a very difficult game to start the Premier League with. Brentford are just one of those awkward teams that you don't really, you always find it hard to face, as we saw last season, losing at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, drawing at the Brentford Community Stadium. But hopefully we can get the season off to a good start. And I think a draw would be a good result, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a good result, but I would take. Would I take a draw now? No. I think we have the capability of winning, but it wouldn't be the worst result to start the season off.
Yeah, and it doesn't get any easier after this as Manchester United come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But look, that is your match preview. I want to know your score predictions and your thoughts on the game in the comment section below. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.